Hello and welcome to this episode of the Physician Associate Podcast. My name is James. This is a very special episode of the podcast and it's going to sound quite different to anything that I've done before. I'm actually really excited to bring this episode out. It's all about something called the On Becoming program, which is a course I joined recently. On Becoming is all about self-empowerment and leadership. It's made me explore who I am as a person and how my self-development and my professional development are really joined together. It's made me really think about what makes me effective, knowledge of myself, my authority, what I notice and what I don't notice about working with me, how well I communicate, how I show empathy and compassion with my patients and my other colleagues, how I present myself to others. It's also made me think about conflict and how I can influence and negotiate people as well. All things that are quite fundamental to being an effective and optimal physician associate. As a self-development program of empowerment, On Becoming has really helped equip me with some skills to improve my daily interpersonal relationships, which are really at the core of my work, and ensures that my care is felt and is expressed. On Becoming really challenged me to discover what I don't know about myself as well. And it's the main reason that I started this podcast in the first place. As part of the On Becoming course, I recorded this special episode of the Physician Associate podcast with my Praxis group. This is a group of 6 physician associates. We're all in different parts of the country, but we were all brought together on the course to support each other, to coach each other, and really give us a community of practice. I'm sure everybody who's a physician associate or a student PA will recognise that we're still part of pioneering this new profession in the UK. There are risks and there are challenges that come with this. So I think it's really vital that physician associates are empowered so that we have the leadership skills, the mentorship skills, coaching skills, and the resilience that we need to become effective professionals that can thrive, that we are robust, and that we can have an impact in our communities. So without further ado, I'm going to start the episode and hand over to my co-host for this episode, Abby.
Welcome to the Physician Associate Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Who Am I Becoming episode of the Physician Associate Podcast. We are 6 physician associates working across the UK in both primary and secondary care. My name's Abby and I'm a physician associate working in secondary care in Aintree, Liverpool.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm physician associate working in A&E in Southport.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm currently job hunting for a secondary care job.
Hi, my name's James. I'm a physician associate based in Suffolk across GP and secondary care.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a physician associate based in Blackburn between primary care and secondary care.
Hi, my name's Emma. I'm a physician associate in primary care working in East Lancashire.
So all of us have different reasons for taking part in the On Becoming programme, and each of our journeys throughout the course have been entirely unique. I feel personally that this is the most beneficial part of the programme, as each experience is personal and beneficial to individual circumstances. During our Praxis group meetings, we had time to reflect on our experiences, putting them into context and practicing our coaching. We have developed a variety of skills and actively practiced one of the most important skills that we learned from Module 1, listening. As the course has progressed and we've got to know one another a little bit more, we've felt more empowered and our confidence has improved to openly voice our thoughts and feelings. Module 2 explored power in detail and allowed us to identify personal attributes of power and how we can further develop this to benefit PA progression. I personally feel, and I'm sure others will agree, that we have all developed as a PA during our time on the course. Module 2 explored presence, linking this closely to authority, and taught us ways in which we can make the PA role our own. Although we appreciate that the PA role is continuing to grow, throughout Praxis group discussions, we have all recognised areas we feel need to improve to allow further progression and development. This will ensure that we become a valued member of the MDT and our scope of work is recognised across all trusts. Each of us have different interests in how we see the PA role developing in the future. But one thing is for sure, the On Becoming programme has provided us all with the confidence to express our ideas and concerns and to provide solutions to ensure PAs are provided with the job satisfaction we deserve. So, who are we becoming? Kate has an interest in standardising PA training and job opportunities across the UK. Angela will be expressing her thoughts on secondary care funding for PAs and how she feels this can be improved. James is going to talk about how the On Becoming group has helped him see the value and need for a community of practice, and how he's launched the PA podcast to create an informative community to inform people about PAs. Rachel is going to discuss how she feels a widely accessible, structured PA preceptorship will benefit PA progression. And lastly, Emma will be exploring the different problems PAs face in the workplace and how the On Becoming programme has helped her to overcome these. So I'm now going to hand over to Kate.
Hello. Hi. Like I said, I'm Kate. I'm a physician associate working in Southport A&E. As Abby said, I've got an interest in trying to standardise the opportunities for PAs throughout the UK. As of the 3rd of June 2021, I was having a look just to see how many courses were offered to train the physician associate role. There was 36 courses altogether, and 32 of these were in England. There's only 2 in Wales, 1 in Scotland and 1 in Northern Ireland. So it got me thinking, we really need to try and push it so that it's more fair across the UK. As of June 3rd, 2021, there was 2,200 or just over 2,200 PAs on the managed voluntary register. Now that means that of those training courses, they're not all going to be from England. It may include people travelling over from Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland into universities in England because the opportunity to study within their hometown or home country is just not there.
So Kate, how big of an issue do you feel this problem is, and how does it really affect PAs?
I think it has quite a big effect on PAs, especially with job satisfaction. So just a very quick search on NHS jobs that shows obviously physician associate jobs for England and Wales. There was over 70 jobs available for the physician associate role in England, 2 available in Wales. NHS Scotland jobs site showed 1 job, and again the Northern Ireland healthcare job search showed 1. So it's very competitive. Where you have the most courses, you seem to have the most jobs, which I think could be a big issue for people who don't necessarily want to settle down in England, who maybe are from different parts of the UK.
That is quite shocking data, to be fair, Kate. And do you think this type of data will actually prevent people from pursuing a career as a PA?
I think so. You've got to bear in mind, Ab, that the course of a physician associate is postgraduate at the moment. Most of the courses are postgraduate. So a lot of people who've already done an undergraduate degree, they may have worked in between. They're not necessarily of a younger age where they may be looking to settle down. They may be looking to be near a family, friends. So I think not having the opportunity to be able to settle down where you want to, for example, your hometown, where your family and friends or where you've been brought up, I think could really put people off from, studying such an intense course.
Yeah.
Knowing that there may not be the opportunity to study or to work finally in your hometown.
Yeah. For me personally, and I'm sure a lot of others were in the same situation, I actually had to stay in, when I studied to become a PA, I had to stay in Liverpool because I wouldn't have been able to afford it if I was to move away.
Well, it's like myself, Abby. I'm actually from Cardiff, and I came across to Liverpool to study physician associate studies. I've now qualified, and my whole family lives at home in Cardiff. All my friends from childhood are at home in Cardiff. My partner has recently got a job in Cardiff. I'm staying in England because there's just no jobs available in the area that I want to be able to work in. So I've trained really hard now for over a year in A&E. There's quite a few jobs that have come through in GP in North Wales, in West Wales. South Wales, there's really not many jobs at all, and if there are jobs, it seems to be mainly in GP, which is not an area that really I was interested in before. I think that in order to hold on to the physician associates and to grow the profession, we need to ensure that there's a standardized opportunity for everybody to be able to work within the area that they've either chosen to work in, because you have to remember as well, physician associates are generalists. They're not there to just supply GP practices. I think I was talking about this to Angela before. There was actually a journal written by Kang and Kunkel in 2019 that showed a direct correlation between the job satisfaction in healthcare and the increased patient satisfaction of the care they're actually given. So I think increasing the available jobs within the areas that PAs want to work in would actually improve patient experience within the areas that these PAs would be working in. So I don't think, it's not just about the staff, it's actually about patients as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make there, Kate. I've never actually thought about it in that way before, but now that you say it that makes sense. So have you thought of any ideas of how this problem can be improved, Kate?
So, for example, England have ambassadors for physician associates. I'm not 100% sure on the funding of it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure how it's run. However, I am aware that there is nothing like that in Wales. There's nothing like that in Scotland or Northern Ireland. I really think that ambassadors for physician associates would help to push those job opportunities forward, and maybe highlighting the areas which we're all aware of, but it's just bringing it to the forefront of the employers' minds and highlighting really what we're able to do and where we can offer the most help. I think ambassadors are really the way forward for us.
Yeah, I agree, Kate. So how will On Becoming help you to develop this in the future, Kate?
So, as I've said previously, I've worked really hard training in A&E for the last year and a bit. I would really like to pursue my career in A&E, especially, just within emergency medicine, really. I feel now, following the On Becoming course, that I've grown my own confidence as a person, and actually I think my professional confidence within my leadership skills has helped me to feel more confident in trying to create a position for me in the future within South Wales, in emergency medicine, which I think was something me and Angela were talking about earlier, weren't we?
Yeah, Kate, following on from what we were discussing earlier, I was thinking back to the year I've just had working as a rotational physician associate in a hospital during a pandemic. I studied my course in Cambridge, and one of the big hospitals there, one of the only hospitals there, do not employ PAs at all. So I had to move away an hour, 45 minutes for me to get the job that I got. And I found myself 3 hours away from my family. And when the COVID restrictions were coming in, which we all needed to follow, I found myself really isolated, and all I had was my flat and my colleagues. And that was really, really tough for me. And at the moment, I'm currently unemployed, essentially, and I am job hunting. And if you go on the NHS website, easily you can see 20 GP jobs all across the country, maybe 1 or 2 hospital jobs. They're all fixed term contracts as well. I'm not too sure what's happening with that. And as somebody who has just finished a fixed term contract job, the year goes really quick. It does not offer any further life kind of security. And as a young person looking to settle down, looking to be closer to family, which I didn't realize was an essential really until this year, all those things seem to be out of my grasp.
Angela, do you know what I think is behind that explosion of jobs into primary care? There's a new scheme called the Advanced Roles Reimbursement Scheme. It's kind of, I think, a government initiative to fund new roles into general practice, because they've recognised that there just aren't enough GPs. So they're sort of giving free money if GPs take on other roles like physician associates, of kind of fully funded free labour for the GPs at the moment. And it includes other roles, community pharmacists, physios, paramedics, dietitians. They're all sort of getting rolled into expanding the GP workforce. So I think that's why there are so many GP jobs for physician associates right now, but I totally agree. Secondary care jobs for PAs just don't exist at the moment.
I find that really saddening, to be honest, James, because in my particular placement, I only did a total of 6 weeks of GP placement. 2 of the weeks were me just observing because I was brand new. Then the last month, I did have my own independence looking after patients. But I'm somebody who's worked in the hospital environment since I was 19 years old. So for over 10 years, I've worked in some capacity in secondary care. I love driving up to the hospital. As a little girl, I always dreamt about looking after sick patients, running around from bed to bed. And to have that almost taken away from me prematurely because there are no jobs or there is no funding, I do find it very upsetting. And I love my skills. I always scored really high in the skills and venipuncture and catheterization and things like that. So I'm just somebody who at the moment I'm putting my foot down on not compromising on a secondary care job. I'd rather leave the PA profession and stay working in secondary care than for me to move to GP practice. And I think that is such a shame. And to potentially have many more people who are going to feel the way I feel, I think is such a shame and a waste of money, because my course was partly funded by Health Education England, not even partly, probably 80% funded by Health Education England.
So I think, Angela, the comment you've just made about the fact that you're willing not to continue with your PA profession if you don't get a job in secondary care is, that just shows how committed you are to working in secondary care, and it just shows how enthusiastic you are about that a role there, rather than working somewhere you wouldn't want to be happy, which to me that just says it all, really.
Yeah, I think I'd be maybe I wouldn't have thought this way before the On Becoming course. And I remember in module 2 they taught us about power, and it's about the power that you're given. I was on the brink of applying for primary care jobs when I started the course because I needed a job. But as the course went on, we got to module 3 and there's this line that's really stuck by me. I've written it out on a piece of paper, and it says, the standard that you walk past is the standard that you accept. And that for me was the final point where I said, I'm not accepting that standard of there not being local jobs where people have their families. I'm standing with Kate on that. I'm not going to stand for that standard of, well, if you want to carry on being a PA, move to general practice because that's where the money is. This course is being put out for a reason, so the jobs should also match the course places.
Go, Angela, go, Kate. So
I think as well, sorry.
Talking about the On Becoming programme, Angela, what else have you taken away from the programme?
I have loved meeting all you guys, all my wonderful friends, because you've been there when I was crying, you've been there when I was job hunting. Definitely, as James echoed in the beginning, about having that community of physician associates and just being empowered to hold on to my power and to stand up and to champion and to request brave things for this course, for now and also for the future and for our patients. This is all for the people we look after who need us.
So that links in quite nicely, Angela, with what James is going to talk about. So James, you wanted to talk about how the On Becoming programme has helped you find support as a physician associate, didn't you?
Absolutely. What Angela's just said sums up for me exactly how I feel as well, about the need for a community of practice, a support group for physician associates. So I work in Suffolk. I was part of the first cohort to train in the east of England. So there weren't many physician associates that were out in the local area when I was training. There were very few sort of role models to look to understand the role. And being qualified, I'm noticing that the students that have coming after me are sort of looking to me and thinking, oh, he's in post, he's working as a physician associate, he must know what it's all about. And I don't really feel, or I didn't feel like that at the start of the course. What I've really loved and what I've really gotten out of being on the On Becoming course is knowing that there are other physician associates in other parts of the country, like you guys, that have had shared experiences and faced some of the same problems. And just having that community where we can bounce ideas around together, can have a chat and a moan about things that have upset us, and we can support each other, has just been phenomenal. To know that there are other people out there to reach out to.
Yeah, I mean, even after module 1, I don't know about the rest of you, I was just so shocked by how many of us had so many similar experiences and shared so many similar views. It really was nice.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think physician associate, especially because it's such a new role, it's very easy to feel quite lonely within your profession, and it's not normalized really, the struggles that you go through, even the triumphs that you go through. You know, you're thinking, should I really be celebrating this? Is this good enough to celebrate? Is this good enough to kind of, whereas when you meet other people and you're on the same wavelength and you're having very similar experiences, actually I feel stronger professionally but also personally than I did before starting the course, which is such a lovely feeling.
Yeah, likewise. Definitely.
Yeah, same. I remember as well, this course is the winter, or at least the autumn cohort, and we had nowhere to go with the restrictions, but the fact that we could all meet and talk was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was lovely.
Definitely. I think for me, because I split my week into 3, so I work some of my week in GP land, some of my week in hospital, and some of my week as an ambassador with Health Education England for my area. I can sometimes feel a bit lonely that I'm not totally connected to all of my teams at the same time, or perhaps it's a bit difficult to spend as much time with your colleagues. So having this other community of actual physician associates around me has been really lovely, and I think it made me realise the value of a community of practice together like that other physician associates are going to need as well.
Yeah.
When I was starting the course, I had an idea in the back of my mind that a way to create a community like that and to inform people about physician associates and some of the issues that are affecting me, that are probably affecting every other physician associate, a really good medium to do that would be a podcast. But at the start of the course, I wasn't really convinced that I had much to say that would be of worth to anybody else to listen to. And I wasn't really sure that I had the confidence to talk about my profession and to do this whole project. I bounced the idea around with you guys initially and the wider On Becoming cohort, and got so much lovely feedback and so much support and positive messages about the need for it, that the On Becoming group have really helped me make the podcast happen, and it's now out in the world.
Woo.
Well done, James. A question, James. I know that you when we've spoken our praxis groups, you've mentioned that on your coaching sessions you'd often spoke about podcasts and things. So how did you find the coaching sessions, and how do you feel that they've benefited your podcast?
The coaching sessions were probably the highlight for me, or one of the best things about the On Becoming whole experience. I felt really nervous before going into the coaching sessions. I felt real anxiety about talking to a stranger about how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way, and the struggles that I was having. And the coach picked up on that within a few minutes, and he said, "You look really stressed, mate, and you look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders." And just having an hour to talk through with somebody like that, I really felt this weight come off my shoulders, and I felt so much better going through the coaching sessions. He helped me prioritize my time, my thoughts and my energy, and made me realize what was important and why I was doing something, and some of the things that were less important that I could forget about. And it's just such a valuable experience. I think in our profession, we all like to think that we listen quite well. We listen to our patients, we hear what they tell us from their histories, and we use that information. But there is such a unique skill that we can all get better at listening, and we can all become much better listeners to help. And it's only sometimes when a stranger listens to you and repeats back what you've just said, so reflects it back at you, or uses your own words and you hear them back at you like that, and they ask a probing question, that you suddenly get this light bulb. And that's what a coach is, and that's been really important to me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the coaching sessions as well. I mean, at the beginning I was absolutely hating them, but then as it went on, I just felt so much more relaxed, and I genuinely after it felt so much better about what I'd spoken about.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got today's podcast, James, but what other podcasts are out there and available, and how do we access them?
Yeah, so this podcast will go out on the feed, and will be a special episode. So I've done about 15 episodes already. They've had some really good feedback on. There's episodes that I've recorded with the General Medical Council about how the regulation of physician associates is going. It was with Claire Barton, who's the Deputy Director in charge of regulation for PAs and AAs. I've had people on from Health Education England to explain more about what physician and associate ambassadors do. I've had physician associates who work in general practice talking about how they've developed their career over 10 years in general practice and the new skills that they've picked up and some of the diplomas that they found really useful. I've done interviews with physician associates in secondary care in really niche specialties like infectious diseases and really general things like acute medicine, just talking about how they've developed and giving career advice and development advice for PAs who might be more junior and wanting to know how that they can develop their career. So if you want to find it, go to a podcast app. It's called the Physician Associate Podcast, and it should be available. It's a blue and yellow logo. You can't miss it. It's really bright and colourful.
Thanks, James. We'll definitely give them a listen. So we're going to be going over to Rachel now. So Rachel, you do similar to James in that your time is split between GP and secondary care.
Yeah, that's right.
And today you'd like to talk about preceptorships for PAs, as you've actually been part of the preceptorship programme.
Yeah, so I've been part of the Lift 2 programme, which is a pilot preceptorship, which is run through the northwest of the UK. And it was a programme for newly qualified PAs, combines primary care and secondary care, and it runs alongside the Fat Doctors Foundation.
It sounds like a really good programme. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, Rachel?
It meant that we could spend some time between both GP and secondary care. It enabled us to gain valuable experience to consolidate all the learning that we did on the PA course. There's quite a lot of structure to it, so it was spread out over the 2 years with rotations through different specialities within the hospital. So that enabled us to spend time in different areas such as surgery and medicine. We also attended the Junior Doctor We also attended the Junior Doctor weekly teaching, which was really good to be involved in, because it really helped consolidate the learning from the PA course, but also the learning and experiences that we had on the job as well.
Yeah, it sounds as though, Rachel, the course really does consolidate the learning that we receive as a PA student, so that obviously you don't feel as though you're just thrown into the deep end when you're starting out your career. So have you got any colleagues who haven't been part of the Lift 2 programme? And how do you feel your training as compared to their training?
I'm aware most of the PAs went straight into either a job in primary care or secondary care. And I know Lift 2 was a pilot programme for physician associates, so only a few were able to take advantage of it. I'm just so glad I had the opportunity, because it's really built the foundations, especially being newly qualified. And I've really enjoyed working in both primary care and secondary care simultaneously. And the experience of the pilot has just been really great for me. So
having that preceptorship programme, how do you feel the On Becoming course has affected you?
So the On Becoming course has encouraged me to reflect on my Lift 2 experience. It's been really invaluable. I feel so much more confident in both areas, and the supportive environment has really helped me find my feet. It's certainly improved my communication and team working skills. And I think the increased medical exposure has really been beneficial for those first few years.
So, Rach, is the Lift 2 available to all newly qualified PAs then?
Not at the moment, no, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, because I think that'd be really good to have such a structured preceptorship. It's definitely something I would have done if it was available to us from our uni, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be really good for a structured programme to be rolled out to a wider number of the newly qualified PAs, because it's really put me in a really good position to continue my career as a PA now. So yeah, I agree, it'd be really good.
Yeah.
I think that probably feeds into Angela's point as well earlier about retaining PAs that you've trained. If you support whilst they're in their first couple of years, you're probably more likely to stay in the profession.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, it gives newly qualified PAs more insight into what it is like to work in GP.
Yeah.
So if they decide they want to work in secondary care, it's because they've had that experience of GP. Whereas, as you said earlier, Angela, we don't get much experience of GP. And very often we're limited with what we can do as a student within GP. So I think it's something that you've got to be really interested in if you haven't had much experience in it as a student. But I think that would really help.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think as you go into any new job or any new space, you can be very anxious. And especially if you feel that you potentially are going to be committing to an area or a location and all the other things that are part of a worker's life or a physician associate's life that forms that work-life balance. It's got to be well thought of, because we are an investment and we can easily become a loss, especially for people like us who have other degrees or who've worked in other jobs. You really don't want to run that risk of having people either go back to their old jobs or go a completely opposite direction.
Yeah. So we'll move over to Emma now. So in your intro, Emma, you talked about the common problems we encounter as a new profession in the NHS. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I think as a new profession, and as James mentioned, especially when we were the first ones who were trained in our area and went out to work in practice, I think things like acceptance into new teams by some, but not all, and facing barriers to progression and development because you're a PA, not really knowing how to manage that and how to navigate those problems that we first found. As James said, without having those people to, go before us, it's quite difficult, to think, for particularly new PAs coming into the profession.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Emma, because although there was a couple of cohorts before us in Liverpool, the hospital I work in, there's not actually that many PAs employed. So within our trust, the role isn't, everyone respects the role, but it's not that well established yet. So I can definitely relate to that. So what have you learned from the On Becoming course that may help with this?
Well, I think something that's really, really helped with my progression, and I think would be really good for the progression of other physician associates, is some work that we looked at by Michael West, who's a senior fellow in the King's Fund. He talks about compassion, and he talks about empathy and understanding without becoming overwhelmed. And that can be in terms of relationships with patients and with colleagues. We also learned quite a bit about team cohesion and team dynamics and how those most affected by the change build the biggest resistance to that change and find it the most difficult. Having an understanding of this has made it much easier to kind of understand why they feel how they feel and why there's that resistance. And it's allowed me to be more, to have more empathy and more compassion, so that I can look at that, understand why that's happening, and then be able to move forward with my own progression and my own development.
So you've also mentioned resilience there, Emma. How do you feel that fits in?
So on the On Becoming course, we learned quite a lot about resilience, about understanding our own resilience and how to develop resilience, which I think is paramount for physician associates and the progression moving forwards. So we discussed some steps that help build resilience. So there was a 4-step approach. So it was about, the first point was about waking up, and it just consisted of being present in that moment. And then secondly, controlling your attention. So really thinking about and focusing on events in hand, and then reflecting on this and on our own thought processes around it too. And then we talked about being detached. So being able to put our emotions separate, which gives us the opportunity to maintain perspective and only focusing on what we can control. Then finally, we talked about letting go. So we talked about worrying about things being a pointless exercise, which just wastes time and energy. But actually caring, on the other hand, is really important and essential to high performance. So being able to differentiate those different steps is really helpful.
Yeah, I remember the exercise we done around this, and it was really, it really hit home. The exercise really hit home for me.
So there was a really good analogy that we used to help with resilience, and I found this so helpful. So we imagined ourselves being in a house. The house had a front door and a back door, and there was water rising around the house. So the increasing water levels are our pressures and stresses and daily demands. And the house is to be thought of as our mind. And then the doors are the control we have over what we let in and let out. So in this analogy, we have three options. So the first one is that we can hide inside and just hope the water will all go away, in which case eventually it won't, and it'll either burst through the doors or it'll come in over the roof, and we'll become kind of overwhelmed with it. So we class that as denial. Secondly, we talked about rumination. So we could just jump into the water where we eventually become exhausted from swimming and still get overwhelmed. And thirdly, we talked about letting go. So we talked about having the front and the back door open right from the beginning and viewing things from the loft. So we've got that distance between what's happening and our thought processes. So that way we can acknowledge things from a distance whilst maintaining perspective, and we can deal with problems and issues as they come, as the water flows through, in through one door, out through the back, and we can always stay above that water level. And I thought that was just a really good analogy, and I really wish that somebody had taught me that and discussed that with me when I was first qualified, and when we were facing all these problems of being the first PAs, in a hospital. It would have made life so much easier.
Yeah, even by you saying that back now, Emma, it's so refreshing when you think about it in that way, and you don't feel as bogged down by things if you take yourself out the picture and look at it from that perspective. So finally, Emma, was there anything else that you found helpful during the course?
So we talked quite a bit about working with others, understanding others, having a curiosity about other people's thoughts and values and ways of thinking and what they can bring to teams. So we did a game called the XY game. And
oh no, not the XY game. Flashbacks.
Yeah, the XY game. It was really awful. And we just learned about, having an understanding of our own behaviours and the way other people saw us and the way we saw ourselves. We started the XY game and that all went out of the window. I was so cross. So I'll give you an explanation of what it is. So we had to pretend that we worked for the company, and we were in 4 teams, and each team was a department within that company. Now, we had to then, at each round, we had to secretly make a decision about whether we were going to go for X, 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 Y, Y, Y. And there was one answer each time, which was most beneficial for the company. Each team won some money for the company, and overall the company did best. You could also secretly undermine the other teams, and you could decide to take all the money. So we all decided, we'd had a chat, we were all going to do the right thing. And of course, people didn't. People took the money and ran. People took the money when they said they weren't going to, when there was double amounts. So by the end, the company hadn't made as much money as it could have done. And some of the departments were going to get fired because they'd made minus money. I was so cross that people wouldn't do the right thing. And then afterwards, it was so interesting to hear why people made those decisions and what their thought process was and the way they felt about the others making those decisions. It really helped me to think about, actually, there's lots of people doing similar things, but they've all got their own ideas and thoughts and views and impressions. And it basically taught me that, you know, having appreciation and realising the way others think, feel and act, and the drivers for that is essential to be able to work well and be successful as a team. I
remember that game well. It caused so much drama.
I love that game.
Our group chose the right thing to do each time. Just saying.
So many snakes in that game. So many snakes. Don't you think that's true, though, of the physician associate profession as it is at the moment? There are so many people thinking about the development of the profession and which path it's going to take. And sometimes it doesn't always make sense to me why somebody feels that they want to do something with the profession, but it's their thoughts and their opinions. And it's, as you were explaining, it's meeting them, understanding why they feel that way. And there isn't always a right answer. My way isn't always the right way.
No. And that's how it all works out in the end, isn't it? Everyone's different and everyone has their own different views on things, and that's how it works. So that's the end of the Who Are We Becoming episode of the Physician Associate podcast.
Thanks, Abby. And thank you for listening as well. I hope you found that really interesting. If you'd like to find out more about the On Becoming programme, which is open to physician associates, you can visit their website, which is on-becoming.co.uk. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with the Physician Associate Podcast, we're on Facebook and Twitter at PA Podcast UK. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Physician Associate Podcast.